It's Tuesday, February 26th, and I'm your host, Paula Hersey. On Barnstable Today, we learn more about a new police academy training facility and find out more about the Healthy Aging Community Initiative and survey to plan for the future. First up, municipal news and notes. As part of a recent Environmental Protection Agency mandate, water utilities across the country will now begin producing annual reports that are designed to educate and inform consumers. Centerville, Osterville, Marston's Mills Water Department announced the release of their annual water quality report, detailing specific issues pertaining to the quality of drinking water that it provides to its customers. Water Department will be mailing the report to its customers along with the January billing. The report is available online too at www.comwater.com. A new police academy training center located on Joint Base Cape Cod is projected to be open this July. Chief Sonnabend shares the importance of having a facility here on the Cape. A police academy right here on Cape Cod.
Yeah, right here on, well, not right here on the Cape.
Not right here.
Over there on the Cape.
Over there on the Cape.
Yeah.
But Joint Base Cape Cod has been approved. It's gone through the state. And Chief Sonnabend, you'll have some time and some folks to send up there, I'm sure.
Yeah, we've got 2 that are waiting right now on a wait list for an academy. So this is great news. It's great news for the Cape, you know, especially some of the departments like you figure like Provincetown and even the islands who have to send people like Martha's Vineyard had to spend $14,000 housing people at an academy because they have to stay overnight.
Right.
So they got to pay room and board and everything else. So in the academies, unless you go out to the State Police Academy, aren't, you know, they don't have accommodations. You got to like rent a hotel room. So there's significant cost to some of these departments. Not so bad with us, unless it just comes down to kind of like travel time mostly. But for some of these other departments, it can be really expensive.
Right. And let's talk a little bit about the whole timing of this, because time is really the issue, because there's certain things that have to be done before they hit the academy. How does that work?
No, time is key, especially, you know, with hiring recruits and everything to get in the academy, because you have to get them into an academy, and within 30 days of that, you have to apply, get your seat, you have to get your PAT tests and medicals and all that other stuff done. So unless you have an academy start date, I may have people I want to hire right now, but I don't have an academy start date until September. And if I get all that stuff done too soon, they don't honor it. So you have to really time it to when the academy start date is, when you get your physical assessments done and everything else. So if you miss an academy start date, like right now we have 2 people that are on the wait list for the Plymouth Academy, which is full right now in April. And the next one is in September. So they'd have to redo some stuff. The only other academy that's available right now is out in Springfield. So we'd have to send people out to Springfield, which means you'd have to house them out there because it's a journey. Do you go every day back and forth to Springfield?
Yeah.
It's not in the cards for us. We just can't do that. So then they have to wait. So it really can impact your staffing levels, because now you have people that are just waiting. Right. So you have vacancies that, you know, you're filling on overtime and stuff like that. It can be quite expensive.
So there's obviously 15 departments plus the islands out there. Does the Cape get first shot at getting their folks into this one?
We will. Preference will be to the Cape departments to get in there first. It'll be July 8th right now is the start date, which means they'll be accepting applications and everything in May. Get it filled up. There'll be 45 seats. They're still, you know, the exact building they're going to use. I don't have the exact location of the building they're going to use, but the auditorium out there, the pool, there's a medical facility. And, you know, in the case of like the Vineyard and Nantucket, if they got to send people over, there's barracks they can stay in. So there's housing available. There's empty housing for different, you know, scenarios and role playing. There's a vehicle driving course. So all the things that are needed are right there. You know, and typically when we send somebody like Plymouth or some of these other academies to go to the shooting range, they may even come down to Cape Cod to use the shooting range, or they may go to New Bedford. So even if you go to like some of these other academies, you may be getting your classroom instruction there, but you're going to other facilities to get the training. Whereas having it on the Cape right there at the airbase, it's a no-brainer because they have all the facilities that they need right there at that one location.
Right. How did this come about? It seemed like it just like showed up on the radar. All of a sudden it was passed.
It's been going on for a long time. It's been going on for quite a while, and it's There's meetings back and forth, there's political things to be done, there's, funding sources to be sought. But now that they've, the approval of some of that new funding for police training and everything else, hopefully that will work towards this as well. But, I hate to say it, but just some of the unfortunate events that have happened lately around the Cape and around the region have really focused some of the attention on the needs of the police training and everything else to get these things done. And specifically with us down here on the Cape, getting people to an academy is just, it's tough. Right. The bridge closes or the weather. You have different hurdles that you don't necessarily face when you're off Cape and you're just driving to an academy that's off Cape as well. So.
Right. And I know that you have recruits now waiting. Do you think they're going to get into that July 8th class?
Right now they're on the Plymouth wait list.
Okay.
More than likely they're not going to get into Plymouth, so they'll probably end up going to this academy
on
July 8th. So.
And it's always attrition. You're always hiring and
We're
retiring and hiring and retiring.
Right now, we're in the process of trying to hire right now. Yeah. We're waiting to see how it's going to work out, see how many people are going to come in and sign our list, and we'll see what happens.
Is that civil service exam still?
The civil service exam, March 21st.
Take the
test.
Take the
test.
If
you want to get on the job, take the test.
Excellent.
Take the test.
Fantastic. Thanks, Chief.
Hey, have a great day.
You too. The Barnstable County's Healthy Aging Cape Cod project, in conjunction with each town's Council on Aging, is conducting an assessment to learn more about people's plans and needs as they age. A Healthy Aging community survey of all residents of Barnstable County began in January 2019 and will end on March 15th. The survey will help to identify what plans and needs residents have as they age and will allow us to coordinate services. Paper surveys are available at your local Council on Aging as well as other community locations. If you have questions about this project, please email or call Vera Herrick, Senior Project Manager, 508-375-6629.
It's called the Healthy Aging Advisory Committee. That's pulled together representatives from the housing sector, transportation, senior services, as well as workforce development, and the medical and health services professions to discuss the issues of aging on Cape Cod and how to age healthfully and successfully from the point of view of being able to stay in your home as you age if you want to, being able to access the resources that are available on Cape Cod. How do you plan to how do you plan to do that successfully? And have you planned to do that successfully? So that's really one of the core issues. We pulled together this group of people in order to think through these problems and try and see our way into the midterm, 5 to 7 years from now. What sorts of resources do we have available? How broad-based are they and accessible to people, both physically and electronically? And what gaps are there and what need to be filled? What do we need to think about as a system in order to help people age in place here on Cape Cod?
So really what aging in place is all about is providing supports for people so that when they get to a point in their life along the continuum where they might need additional support, it could be a situation where they can no longer drive anymore. And in order for them to remain independent and be able to age in place and continue to be remain active in the community, they need additional support. So, for example, at the Senior Centre, we provide a transportation service that's enabling people to age in place.
Right.
For other people, they may have reduced mobility or some disability where they might need modifications to their home. And with those supports in place, they are able to do so. So really what aging in place is about for us, and looking through, the lens of specific to Barnstable with our older adults and across the Cape, a lot of the issues that we're trying to tackle are not just regional issues, they're really global issues.
Correct.
Talking about things like housing and transportation, outdoor spaces and buildings, and all of the things that we need to do as our respective communities to be able to ensure that we are being supportive.
There are a variety of sources of information for this planning. The first of which is these are regularly published reports and census-like type information that's available on a per-town basis that's put out by various agencies. And so that's the dry part of the cake. The frosting on that is the information that we develop as a part of this process, in particular, we're administering a Cape-wide survey of basically all persons age 18 and over are welcome and encouraged to take the survey, and we'll have information on that in this program. We're looking for what people's plans are as they age on Cape Cod. Have you been planning for your later years on Cape Cod? Do you have caregivers that are helping you? And in what ways are people helping you? Or if you're not yet in that older cohort, are you a caregiver for someone who is an older person, family member, neighbor, friend here on Cape Cod? Whether you're paid or not isn't the question. It's, are you providing some meaningful support to someone that allows them to stay happy and healthy as they age here on Cape Cod? So the survey that we're deploying is asking a lot of these questions. We're digging in a little bit on the caregiver aspect of things, because that's an aspect of this that really hasn't been asked in other surveys that have gone on Cape Cod.
Well, it's a good question. I think
Yeah.
sometimes it can become a challenge because as you know, Paula, we've been reaching out to the boomer population for a number of years. For at least a decade, we've been looking ahead at the demographics and seeing it's a whole new generation of people that are coming into the older age, over 60, where typically people would become eligible for programs at the senior center. But baby boomers don't think of themselves as seniors, and they're very much, a generation that's still very actively living and working, and as Vera has alluded to, caregiving. Many of the boomers, we call them the sandwich generation for a reason, because not only are they, raising their own families, but they also have parents that oftentimes they could be providing caregiving services to. So for us, it's we're very mindful of the fact that it's not just one generation that we're seeking to gain input from. And the Barnstable Senior Centre for the last number of years has been really proactive in terms of planning for our increasing percentage of older adults. Currently, we have over 30% of our population is over 60, and so we've done a needs assessment with UMass Boston's Gerontology Institute to really help guide us, and that was something where we ensured as part of that process that we were reaching out to people age 50 and over. And our message to the 50-somethings that thought, well, why are you asking us all these questions? Because we're not seniors. It's, well, because we're doing a long-term planning process here. This is something that, we look at a whole new generation of people that have different needs, different interests, different preferences. And in order, for us to be able to effectively respond to what that is, we have to be willing to evolve and think a little bit differently about how we provide programs and services. So that's our message, and I think Vera will reiterate as well.
Yeah.
There wasn't any specific age with this survey, because we really wanted to make sure that anybody any resident of Cape Cod, can participate in this survey. And as Vera talked about, the people who are caregivers, oftentimes they are people that are under 60, but their input is invaluable to us, because, they are trying to keep their loved ones living in the community for as long as possible. So they need supportive services in order to do that we want to be able to respond to.
I think that I'm a perfect example of the cohort she's talking about. I'm 53 years old. My mother's 82. My father's deceased. And so I'm the primary support, emotional, psychological support for my mother. She's still very able. She comes and goes. She tells me how it is on a regular basis. But at the same time, I'm the person who keeps track of her financial issues. I manage her transportation issues. And that dynamic between she and I is only going to grow as she ages. And she's aging in place in my orbit, around me. She's moving here to be closer to me. That's the great way for senior centers to reach out to people who are not yet seniors, because people in my age demographic, and even in their 40s, are almost invariably caring for someone who's who's now aging. They're caring for a aging family member with greater intensity as time goes on. So if you can make people in my age group in their 40s and 50s aware that there's going to be a continuum of experience for them, where this responsibility, which is a wonderful responsibility, I'm proud to do it, is going to be something that expands as a part of my life. That is a huge role for senior centers to be discussing and providing resources for as well. So not just direct service to seniors, but but direct service in this sort of informational and advisory capacity for people who are in the younger demographic who are caregiving for seniors. Healthy aging has its the implications for the built environment, accessible buildings, transportation that allows you to get from A to B if you no longer drive. But there's also an emotional and psychological component to it that's necessary. That's a necessary box to check off when you're planning for your later years, and that's the caregiving aspect of it. Whether or not you are socially connected to others. If you're isolated, that has a very deleterious impact on your health. And so we want to, in our planning, as we plan for this, we want to be really mindful of addressing issues of isolation here on Cape Cod. Given that we're a relatively remote rural environment in many parts of the Cape, can be an important issue.
You know, for some of the towns on the Cape, including Barnstable, that have already done needs assessment, we already have a lot of that baseline data.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of towns that haven't had the resources to do those really in-depth assessments. And so, you know, for us, we felt any of this information is invaluable to us because the responses that we get from the survey really do determine how we reshape our services and where we direct our resources. And with this project, you know, the survey is one part of a 2-year process that the county is leading with buy-in and investment from all 15 towns on the Cape to make the Cape a more age-friendly region. And so there's a lot of other pieces of this project, but the survey is huge because that's where people who live across the Cape have a direct voice,
right?
You know, in sort of, you know, providing that information to us. And it is exhaustive. I think it's pretty comprehensive. You're looking at 50, I think there's 50 questions in total, but it covers the gamut from transportation, housing. Vera talked about isolation, which is a huge issue for many people that are aging on the Cape, where, you know, they may have appropriate housing, but they may feel like they're kind of trapped in their homes because they don't have enough opportunities to connect with people. They may not have family living close by. And we need to know where these people are so that we can reach them and let them know about all of the great programs and services, you know, or they may be in need of transportation. So, you know, if people are willing to take 10, 15 minutes to go through this, which, you know, we've had great response so far, which I think is
we have
phenomenal.
over, the count was, we're over
1,000.
1,700 now?
Oh, wow.
No, we're about 1,100. We're pushing 1,100
We'll
right
get
now,
there.
and there's still a month to go. What I'm trying to say is that we have an aging electorate, and we have to make clear, and we have to make clear that there's an intergenerational aspect to our work that's really a healthy community that we're looking for here, such that younger folks, younger people also have resources that they need to age successfully and thrive here and raise their children here also. So there has to be a balance to this work, and such that the work doesn't all flow just purely demographically toward an aging population. There has to be a balance in that regard.
You know, and when we talk about the whole idea of age-friendly planning, it's really, you know, a lot of people think it's all about older people, and we're trying to, you know, reinforce the sort of the sense that it's not just about older people, because what you do to help benefit older people will benefit everybody in the community as a result. Whether it's younger generations or people with disabilities, that everybody feels that, you know, public buildings are accessible, that the programs and services that we offer to the community are inclusive of all people. And so that's, I think there's a mindfulness approach to this, that all of this coming together and having, you know, such broad participation from all of the stakeholders, whether it's the Cape Cod Regional Transit Authority or Cape Cod Healthcare, Elder Services, working with Barnstable County Human Services and all of the 15 councils on aging on the Cape. It's a really great opportunity for us to put all of our collective wisdom together, and we're learning new things. And the survey is such an important piece of that, because we need to get that, you know, input directly from members of the community to help guide us with all of these future efforts.
The reason we're doing that is because the demographics on Cape Cod are such that we have a disproportionately old population relative to the rest of the state, and our population growth in the older categories, age 60 and over, is growing quickly. People like to come to Cape Cod. People retire here. They make their second homes here, and then once they retire, that home becomes maybe their first home. So we have a growing population base of people who are age 60 and over, which is a good thing. This is not a negative thing. But we need, as an economy and as a social structure and as a provider structure, need to be ready for that. So there's the survey that we're making use of in order to gain input from the community on a broad basis. We're also conducting what we call key informant interviews. We're asking specific people in the community, both the head honchos of agencies, but also normal people who have an opinion and who we need their feedback on. Members of people who are in the disability community, people in caregiver support groups in particular. We're doubling down and asking some specific questions of those people to gain insight on what some of their challenges are and some of their needs are for the inputs that they're providing. And I can understand people having that response to surveys in general. This one in particular we crafted very carefully, such that we're asking questions for very specific reasons. And we went over the survey questions a number of times to weed things out, where we were thinking very carefully, why are we asking this? Do we really need this? And how does this question relate to other information that we'll be getting? So even so, it's a 10-minute survey. It asks questions of what we call demography, which is a fancy way of saying what race are you, what age are you, what age bracket are you, what's your income level? So these would be the typical things that people might find intrusive. But these things are so important because these particular questions are very predictive, we find, in the realm of public health and human services, of how you're going to utilize services and what services are necessary for you. So we need to know that male, female, in order to appropriately characterize some services. We need to know income bracket so that we can make sure to make available to the community resources that are affordable to them and bring in free resources for people who can't afford them. So there are really specific reasons we ask some of these seemingly intrusive questions, but they're very important. To the extent that people are willing to do so, please answer all the questions. But if there's one that's really a deal breaker for you, skip it, move on to the next one.
It's been great. It's been fabulous for us to be able to work so closely with Barnstable County. It's obviously the issues regarding aging are not just, for one agency to solve. We're all in this together. And I think there really is sort of a great momentum and energy right now with all of the stakeholders, and there is a sincere, genuine desire for us to really make a positive impact to help all residents on Cape Cod who are, approaching, their 60 and older, to really help them be able to age in place. It's all about healthy aging. We're doing a lot of great stuff in all of our communities now, but it's really trying to rally all of these collective efforts around it, which I think has been very positive for all
absolutely.
of us.
Try and recite
the
here.
Good news is it's in a lot of places around Barnstable. So
Yeah.
we have it in our Compass magazine. We have a link to the survey and information about the project. It's also being circulated through the Barnstable Bulletin, and also through the Town Manager's weekly e-news. We have hard copies at the Senior Centre, as Vera mentioned. We've also distributed them through all of the civic associations. They're going to be in all of the village libraries. So we wanted to make sure that we're reaching out beyond the confines of the Senior Centre, so that really it's accessible to people. And if somebody wants to give us a call, we're happy to mail them a copy of it, or they can come in, pick it up in person. I think probably the best way to complete it, if you have time, is to go online.
Yeah.
But whatever way is comfortable for you to do, we just want people to take the few minutes because, like we've said, this information, it's not just when you complete a survey and it gets tossed in a corner somewhere. This is information that we will be using for a long time to come.
All right, so you can access it's an electronic survey. You can go to a website or a web link that we have, and there's also not everyone's comfortable doing that. So there's also paper copies at every Council on Aging on Cape Cod. All 15 councils on aging are participating in this process, and it's a wonderful thing. So there's paper copies that you can fill out at your Council on Aging, or you can access it online.
Here's a look at things to do, places to go, and people to meet. Featuring 40+ hands-on activities, the Magic of Chemistry stage show, opening reflections on an accidental career in science, followed by a keynote lecture by NASA on International Space Station research and the Gateway Lunar Orbiting Platform are just some of the highlights of the annual STEM journey, the International Space Station and beyond, at Sandwich High School March 2nd from 11 to 3 p.m. Now for a look at upcoming meetings for boards, commissions, and committees. Comments, suggestions, accolades? Connect with us on Facebook and Instagram, email us, or send us an old-fashioned note by carrier pigeon. Channel 18 works. For you, I'm Paula Hersey, and thank you for watching Barnstable Today.